Coming up today, voters in Korea have denied the conservative Saenuri Party the parliamentary majority it had expected in Wednesday's general election. The Liberal Minju Party of Korea and the People's Party score some solid victories. South Korea and the United States are set to hold the first general meeting of their high-level Committee on Nuclear Energy. The talks come as Seoul hopes to expand its peaceful nuclear activity. First, the Pentagon says Phase 1 in the fight against ISIS is over. Phase 2 aims to dismantle the Islamic terror group. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Thursday, April 14th here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning is, of course, the general election. All the votes have been totted up now and the final results are in. The Conservative Saenuri Party had a bad night, failing to secure a majority in the National Assembly as it had been expecting. The Liberal opposition parties fared much better than they had expected, picking up extra seats that will stand them in very good stead for the next 4 years and for the presidential election, the big one that is coming up at the end of next year. We do have our Shin Se-min in the studio for a breakdown of the results. So Se-min, it really was an exciting night, and the results caught pretty much everyone off guard, by surprise.
Right, it was a shock to a lot of people, especially the major political parties, because the numbers from the exit polls did not match with the initial projection made by each political parties. And a little after 10 hours of ballot counting at around 4:30 a.m. Thursday Korea time this morning, a lot of the ballots have been coming in and tallied up. The results show that the ruling Saenuri Party failed to secure a majority of seats in the 20th National Assembly. And for that, and that's the first time in 16 years the opposition parties combined will now have a majority outnumbering the Conservative Party. Now here's a rundown of the number of seats designated to political parties based on the election results. Now, what you see on the screen is the numbers that we had a couple of hours ago, but we have the final results, which are the Saenuri Party securing a total of at least 122 seats, while the Minju Party of Korea won some 123, and the Minor People's Party taking 38 seats. Now, that's the final results, so that will be the final number for the parliamentary seats designated for the political parties.
Well, just looking at the map there, and you see a huge swathe of red for the ruling Saenuri Party. But of course, those areas are rather less populated than the others. It was a bad night. It was a very bad night for the ruling Saenuri Party and a good night for what was the main opposition, Minju Party of Korea. But they actually, as of now, have more seats than the Saenuri Party, according to the results. So the dust really is still settling, and the parties will take stock this morning. They've been campaigning for a long time, late into the night, watching these results. But what we did see in this election is that areas that historically voted for one particular party actually switched their allegiances in some cases.
That's right. Some of the political home turfs got smashed from this election. Now, regions known to support a certain political party have changed, tearing down the regionalism that we're normally used to, and that's also rooted in the country's political realm. If you take a look at this map here, the colors of the political parties painted in parts that aren't normally seen with that pigmentation. Now, this is zooming in on the Seoul metropolitan area. The Minju Party of Korea took the majority seats in the capital, where nearly half of the country's entire electoral ballot were up for grabs. And looking at the entire Korean map, for one in the Honam region, known as the region that backs the country's largest liberal party, has been swept by the Minor People's Party, securing 25 seats from the total of 28. Now, also in the Gyeongsang-do province, known as the home ground of the ruling Saenuri Saenuri Party, a lawmaker representing the Minju Party of Korea, and an independent candidate that left the ruling camp, Yoo Sung-min, had been elected to stand up for the people in Daegu.
It's interesting to see how the map for Seoul took shape, because the Minju Party of Korea had a very good day there. Of course, the Gangnam region, the real affluent area of Seoul, still voted for the Saenuri Party. What are we hearing from the political parties at this point?
At this point, the headquarters of the political parties have waned out. There's not many people at the headquarters anymore. But from what I've seen on the election day, starting from a little after 3 p.m., a lot of the political party members gathered at the headquarters of each party to monitor the exit polls coming out. And all cheers and the serious faces kicked in the moment the polls closed at 6 p.m. Korea time, with the members of the political parties, including the leaders, monitoring the numbers and the screens set up at the headquarters. Now, the Saenuri Party kept its solemn faces throughout the vote casting processes, eventually keeping the party leader Kim Moo-sung from visiting the actual election base throughout the entire election day. Now, hours after the ruling camp told reporters that the party humbly accepts the election results, adding that it will be reborn as the political party that communicates with the people. And quite a different mood at the Minju Party of Korea, as the party members cheered on as the exit polls showed that they're expected to win more seats than initially projected by the party itself. Now, the party's interim leader Kim Jong-in said that he felt the public's sentiment is a frightening power and that it will take some time to change the heart of the people, especially gearing towards the people of Honam region. Now, the Splinter People's Party also greeted the outcome, as the polls show that at one seat it hoped to secure, including the majority seats it had pledged to win. The minor liberal camp expressed confidence for winning seats it had pledged to win, even without joining forces with the Minju Party of Korea.
Well, you couldn't get a more contrasting reaction to the exit polls there. The Saenuri Party looking very downcast. The Minju Party of Korea, the second party of people we saw there, looked over the moon, and the People's Party looked pretty happy, apart from the leader An Chol-soo, although I'm sure inside he was absolutely delighted with the results as well. Now, this general election is considered a kind of litmus test for the big one, which is coming up at the end of next year, December 2017. It's the presidential election. This could really reshape the political landscape over the next several months in the run-up to that. How do you think this is going to change the atmosphere going into the big one?
Well, experts say it's going to be a game changer, as the outcome that we're seeing looks like it's going to be the first time in 16 years that the combined opposition party lawmakers will outnumber that of the ruling party, and which that will also greatly influence President Park Geun-hye's remaining term that ends on February 2018. And experts are also cautiously predicting that with the ruling Saenuri Party losing steam by not being able to secure the majority at the parliament, that outcome is likely to bring a new paradigm in selecting the next president of Korea, and even selecting the presidential nominee down the line.
Okay, so as of now, pretty much those are numbers we're looking at. They may change somewhat over the course of the day as we wait for 100% of the votes to come in and for the dust to finally settle. Like I was going to say, you've been with us all night following this election, so thank you very much, Sae-min. I know because I connected to you at noon yesterday at the Minju Party headquarters, so thank you ever so much for your reports. And yes, that's it for our election coverage for now. We're going to move on to the rest of the day's news. Now, Korea's finance chief has expressed confidence the nation can hit its growth target of slightly over 3% this year, despite the slowdown in China, which is Korea's biggest trading partner. Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Seoul's Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho says Korea has enough room to implement both fiscal and monetary policies to prop up growth. This came during his briefing on the Korean economy for foreign investors in New York on Tuesday local time. During an interview with Bloomberg there, he also opened the door for an extra budget, saying if global economic conditions worsen further, the government could rely on more fiscal power. With that, Yu emphasized 3% range growth is an attainable target for the Korean economy. The government's growth forecast for this year currently stands at 3.1%. Despite the possibility of more easing, the minister's outlook is considered rather rosy compared to global and local financial institutions that expect Korea to fall short of expansion in the 3% range this year. The International Monetary Fund also downgraded its latest outlook for the country to 2.7%. And these grim projections are widely attributed to external economic conditions.
Global conditions are worse than expected, and because of that, exports are off track, even if they picked up slightly in March. Pressure from this could justify significantly downgrading the outlook.
The IMF also says slowing demand in China will continue to take a toll on the Korean economy. Korea's total exports have plunged for 15 straight months now, and those include, of course, shipments to China, which make up a quarter of total exports. Still, new figures from China are showing a silver lining. Fresh export data points to more confidence that the country is regaining stability, rising 11.5% in March on year in dollar terms, the fastest pace in a year. 황지혜, Arirang News.
Now, U.S. media is reporting that American intelligence satellites have spotted signs North Korea may be preparing to test fire a mobile ballistic missile for the first time. If Pyongyang goes ahead with a launch, it would most likely prompt Washington to reassess its stance toward the regime. Connie Kim reports.
North Korea may be preparing for its first launch of a mobile ballistic missile that could potentially reach parts of the United States. Citing senior U.S. officials, CNN reported Tuesday that U.S. intelligence satellites have detected such movements, and the launch would most likely involve a medium-range Musudan missile. This type of missile is estimated to have a range of some 3,000 kilometers, making it capable of reaching Guam and perhaps the outskirts of Alaska. However, the officials did not rule out the possibility that North Korea could test the longer-range road-mobile intercontinental ballistic missile KN-08, or its advanced version, the KN-14. Each has a range of some 12,000 and 10,000 kilometers, making them both capable of reaching the west coast of the continental U.S. A South Korean military official said Pyongyang is upping its effort to launch a ballistic missile in order to boost its nuclear capabilities, adding that Seoul is maintaining a defense readiness posture in the event of any additional provocations. The report comes amid speculation Pyongyang could launch another provocation to commemorate the birthday of North Korea's founding leader Kim Il-sung on Friday. Last week, the North claimed that it successfully carried out a ground test of a powerful ICBM engine. The U.S. Defense Department said it cannot discuss the validity of the report, but urged the North to refrain from provocative actions and instead focus on fulfilling its international obligations. With tensions continuing to rise over the North's nuclear missile programs, it doesn't seem likely that Pyongyang and Washington will meet anytime soon. There had been speculation that North Korean Foreign Minister Lee Soo-yong would seek a meeting with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry on the sidelines of the landmark signing of the Paris Agreement on climate change at the UN headquarters in New York. But diplomatic sources in Washington have dismissed the idea. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, China is not only North Korea's closest political ally, it accounts for roughly 90% of trade to the north. That's why the importance of Beijing's implementation of economic sanctions has repeatedly been underscored. But recent trade figures cast doubt on whether China is ready to play the role asked of it by the international community. Kwon Swa reports.
Beijing, on many occasions, be it in talks with South Korea or with the U.S., has vowed to strictly follow through with international sanctions on Pyongyang. It recently announced a list of restricted items of trade with the North with the goal of making it more difficult for the regime to fund its nuclear weapons program. But the latest trade figures show it is still too early to determine whether Beijing's commitment to firing up pressure on the North is taking effect.
According to customs statistics, bilateral trade between China and North Korea in the first quarter was 7.79 billion yuan, up 12.7% from the previous year.
That's a trade value of roughly $1.2 billion. Outbound shipments in the January to March period climbed by almost 15% on year, with main items being electronic goods as well as labor-intensive and agricultural products, while inbound shipments rose nearly 11%, highly attributed to its coal and iron ore imports. But the spokesperson explained that China's implementation of sanctions, in line with the UN Security Council resolution that was adopted in March, began only in early April, saying the first quarter's numbers do not reflect Beijing's latest efforts on tightening the noose around trade with the North. He added that items that are not related to nuclear weapons development, such as those for livelihood purposes, are not subject to sanctions. As of now, it looks like only time will tell whether China will keep its end of the bargain. But experts add Beijing will likely take advantage of existing loopholes in UN sanctions, which is why skepticism prevails as people look ahead from the latest trade figures. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United States will hold the first general meeting of their high-level committee on nuclear energy later today, led by Second Vice Foreign Minister Jo Tae-yeol and U.S. Deputy Secretary of Energy Elizabeth Sherwood Randall. The inaugural session of the high-level bilateral commission will also be attended by some 80 officials and experts on atomic energy policy from each side. The committee is in charge of enforcing a bilateral nuclear energy partnership accord. The nuclear energy accord reached last year allows Seoul to expand its peaceful nuclear activity through research. The US also agreed to continue discussions on allowing South Korea to produce low-enriched uranium. The U.S. Department of Defense says the first phase of military operations against the Islamic State group is over and the second phase is now underway. Colonel Steve Warren, spokesman for the U.S.-led coalition fighting ISIS, said the enemy has been weakened, marking the completion of phase 1 of the three-stage campaign. Phase 2 aims to dismantle ISIS, making way for the third phase, which is ultimately defeating it. Warren said phase 1 focused on stopping ISIS from advancing and eliminating the group's ability to operate as a conventional force. Successes in the first phase included the recapture of about 40% of the territory ISIS once held and the elimination of leaders and income sources. While ISIS can still put together some complex attacks, he said they have not been able to take hold of any key terrain for almost 1 year now. The Pentagon says Russian military aircraft have conducted a series of what were described as aggressive overflights of an American naval ship in the Baltic Sea. A U.S. defense official said that in one incident earlier this week, a Russian fighter jet, look at that there, you can see the video how close it came just 9 meters above that destroyer. The US said the Sukhoi Su-24 warplanes were carrying no visible weapons and the ship, the USS Donald Cook, took no action. And calls from the ship's crew to the Russian jets went unanswered. Now, the commander of the missile destroyer described the flight as a simulated attack. The White House called the incident entirely inconsistent with professional norms of militaries. Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for watching. We'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. So until then, goodbye.